speaking facts, I'm known to keep it real. I ain't worried about your feelings when I'm in the field. They be watching what I do from my highlight reel. I'm just running to the paper, fuck how you feel. If you looking for the truth, then I'm the real deal. If you looking for the truth, then I'm the real deal. Shout out to the crew and they get real, real. I'm in with the crew, nigga, real.
What is up, everybody? It's the Real Deal League Fantasy Podcast. Unfortunately, we don't have Bruce here today, but that's all right. It's going to be me and Trav here bringing you your Week 3 review and talking about Thursday Night Football and also implementing some injuries. And let's just start off with how'd your fantasy team do this week, Trav?
Most of them did actually pretty good. Went 6-2 this week in my 8 leagues, so I'm happy with that.
Nice.
Can't pick up a win in your league for some reason. 0-3 now through 3 weeks. That's a whole nother story, man. Injuries killing me, but other than that, pretty solid week of fantasy. And man, some of these games are incredible to watch.
Yeah, man. I got my first win in the RDL league.
Yeah.
So I'm happy about that. I'm happy about that because it was looking kind of scarce. And I went on the risky side with taking Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp, and I have some other injuries and IRs that hindered my team, but it's looking good. And one more week until we get Kupp back, and we don't know what's still going to happen with Jonathan Taylor. He's saying he doesn't want to play for the Colts, so if they don't trade him, it's going to be a bad pick for me when I look back at things. But I'm glad you had a good fantasy week. I had a good fantasy week as well. I won in most of my leagues. I think I lost maybe in one on one of them. I think I lost. But regardless, we're here to talk about fantasy football, and we're here to talk about players that give us the most point and your lineups and everything that you had for week 3. And we can't overlook week 3 without talking about a huge performance for a bunch of fantasy players on a certain team. I don't know what the team is. Do you?
No, I don't remember their name. I think they're like green and like blue or something. I don't remember their colors.
Green?
Oh, yeah, it was a huge week for everybody on the Jets. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, let's just get right to it, man. Let's just get right to it. These guys, this game, man, 70 points. 70 points by the Dolphins. What does that mean? A lot of points.
Oh my gosh.
On the field, fantasy wise. I mean, listen, we're clearly Jet fans here, and but we are not biased when it comes to this podcast. We talk about points, we talk about good players, we talk about what's going to help you win your fantasy team. And these guys, if you have these players on your team, especially people like Mostert, we didn't really expect such high performance. I mean, we knew he was going to be good on this team. We knew this team was going to be good, and we knew the fantasy value was going to be there, but we didn't expect, what was it, 4 touchdowns? Was it 4 touchdowns for him?
4 touchdowns for just Mostert. Yeah.
My God.
Dude.
That is just crazy. Mostert came in with a whopping 45.20 points in PPR leagues, 13 carries for 82 yards, 3 touchdowns, 7 for 7 on receptions, 60 yards and a tutty there too. I mean,
dude.
Wow.
I mean, that offense is just so electric to watch. Now, granted, they're probably never going to score 70 points in a game again, but holy crap, if you had any of these dudes and you started them, there's no way you lost your week. It would have to be an unreal amount of bad luck for you to have lost a week with any of these Dolphins in your lineup.
Mind you, I'm playing the highlights here. They've only scored 1 touchdown so far. I believe it was on the first play or the opening drive at the least with Tyreek Hill. And we knew that was going to happen. We knew Tyreek was going to get the love, especially with Waddle being out. We told you last week in our podcast that definitely you weren't going to see any hindering in Hill's performance because Waddle was out. If anything, I didn't think it was going to be such as good as a game. But listen, Hill still did his thing. Hill coming in at 30 points in PPR leagues, 9 for 11 on receptions, 157 yards, and only 1 touchdown. Only 1 touchdown and giving you 30 points. That's what Hill's going to continue giving you. If you have Hill in your lineup and you went ahead and some people took him because they just knew it was going to be going to be a good game. They took him really early, and it worked out for you. It worked out for them.
Yeah, and Tyreek is going to continue to put up performances like this nonstop throughout the year. Him and Tua are just on a different level right now. Easily the best duo in the league, not named Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, but even they haven't done something like this.
Right.
70 points in a game. And we'd be remiss to not talk about the darling of the weekend, maybe the hottest name on the waiver wire. One of the most intriguing names, considering that you weren't expecting his role to be this big, this fast.
Say his name right.
Oh, I heard there's a new way to pronounce it now.
Right.
Mr. Devon Achon. Is it
Achon.
Achon?
He wants,
Achon.
yeah, Achon. Apparently his
Oh
name was
my
being said
God.
incorrectly by the media. That's a L on the media. But we're gonna do you right here at the RDO podcast.
Devon Achon.
Yeah, man. I mean, those stats, I'm looking at them now. 18 carries. He had more carries than Mostert, which is a starting running back, right? He had more carries than Mostert, 203 yards, 2 tutties on the ground, 2 tutties in the air. I mean, listen, okay, let's talk about it. Let's just be real. We're giving our flowers. We're not gonna hinder anything here. We're not gonna talk bad. I said use that word hinder a couple times. Right? Let me get that out of my vocabulary. We're not gonna talk bad about anybody here. This is unbiased fantasy football for everybody here. We'll come right back to that. But let's give Tua his flowers too. Tua did something very interesting. 3 incompletions, 4 touchdowns. The man had more touchdowns than he had incompletions. I don't care what you say about this man in a fantasy aspect and in the NFL and the real world aspect, not in the fantasy aspects. He's doing what he did last year before he got hurt, and it's scary, man. It's scary, and it's good for Dolphins if you're a fan, and if you have him on your fantasy team. It's ridiculous.
I saw a scary stat the other day that through his 3 games in 2022, the first 3 when they started off 3-0, and the first 3 in 2023 where they started off 3-0, his stats are exactly identical.
Exactly the same, man.
Exactly. Dude, he's 72 for 101. Like 72 completions, 101 attempts. Like that's insane. And then the touchdowns, interceptions, the yards, all similar.
Right.
From the first 3 games of 2022.
And,
that's
and,
just
and
unreal.
Listen, the man's hard not to like. He's hard not to like.
Of course,
he's a Christian man. He's a God man. He praises God a lot. He talks about he giving everything to him, and he's making his prayers, and he's doing everything he's doing, and it's working for him. And it just goes to show different aspects of his faith and things that he did over the off season to prepare himself for this year. And hopefully, we're hoping him to have a good year. I don't wish any injuries on anybody, but besides that, man, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, let's look at other areas on the team before we go to a little bit of downside of this game, right? And as you see here on the screen, we have the Broncos score here. I'm going to go ahead and take it off. We've been showing a lot of stuff here, so I'll go ahead and take that off. We had Robbie Anderson, or Chosen Anderson, I guess his name is now, right? Or is Robbie Chosen? I don't know.
Robbie Chosen.
Anyways, he put up 13 points in that game. He was the second highest scoring receiver, but he's not going to see that love every week. So just be careful there. Don't look at these stats afterwards and be like, hey, oh, look, Robbie, he's back. He's back. Negative. He had 1 reception for 1 touchdown, a big one. I believe it was at the end of the game, 68 yards for a touchdown. Mike White might have thrown it to him. Is that right?
Yeah, it was just a good old jet troll. Let's have Mike White throw Robbie Anderson a touchdown and, see what happens.
Right. A lot of people were hoping Berrios was going to have a good game. He did not. With all the points being spread out through this offense, he didn't get love. And I see that to continue to happen. He's going to be a special teams player that's going to be in a couple of the offensive plays. So that's another one to stay weary of. Don't look at this Dolphins offense and be like, oh, we got to get some of these guys because they put up 70 points.
Right.
70 points is not going to happen every week. It's awesome that it happened for them. It's awesome for their fans, and it's awesome for your fantasy team if you had these players that week. But it's not going to happen every week. And Berrios is not going to be that guy. Do you agree?
Oh, 100%. Berrios should not be considered a serious fantasy option right now, especially with the return of Jalen Waddle coming up. This team is clearly going through Reek, Waddle, and now these 2 running backs. So that's where all the fantasy points will be going.
Exactly. And I mean, continuing to look at this game, we kind of got all the Dolphins there, gave them the flowers and talked about their points. Let's go to the other side of the field and how scary it is to own any of these players. Let's talk about the big one because he may have been taken early in a lot of leagues. Javonte Williams. What are we doing with him, man? What are we doing?
I think it's safe to just bench him, and if you didn't draft him to be your RB2, I'm hoping that you didn't, or if you did, you drafted a good contingency plan at running back 3, running back 4 for your team, because you never want to put your full trust in a player returning from the type of injury he's coming back from, a bunch of knee damage on that surgery, ACL,
Right.
MCL, you name it. So I think right now we're in a safe spot to bench him moving forward and make him prove it to us first. And if you miss on that big boom game that he has when he's finally healthy and everything's clicking, that's fine, because you don't want to keep living with 8.5 and 7.5 and 6.5 in your running back 2 spot. So if you
Right.
have another option, it's okay to say, you know what? I know I had these expectations for Javonte, but let me put him off to the side and let's get somebody else in my running back 2 spot.
Yeah, man, it's tough. It's tough there. I mean, he was expected to be a solid RB2 and going 0-3 for their team, for the Denver Broncos itself. I don't see him continuing to get much love. They're going to try to push the ball down the field, knowing Sean Payton. He's going to want to get that first win. He's going to want to prove a point, and they're going to use and abuse Russell Wilson, who's another person. I don't think he's on much people's unless you're in a dynasty league or a very uh, high manager league. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody's starting Russell Wilson, so there's nothing to complain about there or talk too much. I'm not going to dwell too much on Russell Wilson, but let's go to the receivers on this team.
Yeah.
That people, once again, we're hoping these receivers are going to do well. Some of them are doing well. I mean, this game they're fighting from behind a lot.
Yeah.
So that's where we see a lot of these points. And I'll bring it up on the screen here. It shows you here on Denver side the points they had. Zoom that in. And yeah, man, it's just, let's go down here. All right, here's our receivers. Tell us about these guys. We have Sutton, we have Mims, and Judy, who's been said to be on the trade block apparently.
Yeah, a lot going on in Denver. It was good to see Jerry Jeudy back in some game action, some real game action. 7 targets, 5 catches, 81 yards. Good for 13.10 fantasy points with decimal scoring in PPR formats. That's a solid week for a guy that you were probably just throwing back into your flex real quick if you needed to. You know, that's a solid flex option. But I will say this, Marvin Mims doesn't seem like he's going anywhere anytime soon. This is a legit option in your flex right now for the Denver Broncos. Him and Russ have a little bit of chemistry going. He's on kick return duties, punt return duties. I believe he had a special teams touchdown this week, and that's why his points are inflated with the 16.60, even though he only has 3 catches for 73 yards. So there was a special teams touchdown in there. Good on Marvin Mims, but also 5 targets. You know, there's a lot of mouths to feed with Sutton and Judy. Just to see him getting some work and putting up double-digit points is pretty interesting. And then Cortland Sutton, who probably could have had 2 touchdowns, maybe even 3 in that game. One got called back on a penalty, and Russell missed him wide open running down the back of the end zone on another one. But still, 8 catches on 11 targets, 91 yards, and a touchdown. That is great play for somebody that you drafted as a wide receiver 4 or a flex. He can be a lineup lock right now with 3 games in a row in double-digit points. There's no issue with that. So ugly game for them. Yes, they were playing from behind, but that's kind of going to be the story of the Denver Broncos season. They're going to be playing from behind a lot. Maybe not down 35, 45 points every week, but they're going to have a game coming up with the Chicago Bears, 2 awful teams, 2 0-3 teams, I believe also. And I'm expecting 2 bad defenses to get abused out there. So maybe these Denver Broncos wide receivers can put up some more points again.
Okay. And there, Judy, do we see him on a new team? Do we trade him from our teams if we have him in our lineups?
I think you can certainly start fielding offers for him. I think the more that he sees in-game action, the more people are going to be interested in him again. Remember, he was during the meat and potatoes of draft season is when we found out about his hamstring injury. So he fell around 2 rounds, 3 rounds later because nobody wants to start their team off in that type of hole during draft season. But now that he's back on the field, you're seeing him running routes. He's getting 7 targets, 81 yards. He's winning downfield again, like Jerry Jeudy normally does. I think you can definitely start playing with his name a little bit and dangling it around in trade offers and see what you can get back. Pair him maybe with another running back and go upgrade at wide receiver if you need to.
Yeah, man. I completely agree with that. I think that's about it for this Denver Miami game. There wasn't much more value there. And if unless you have some of these players, besides Achon, there's nobody really that's going to be on the waiver wire for you to pick up. But there's 2 running backs there, high power running backs. Maybe you could try making some trades or something like that to get one of these players on your
Yeah.
team, because like I said, they're going to continue to show value, but both mouths can't be fed all the time, every single week, because it's a high power offense. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot. Not every week they're
Yeah.
going to be putting up 70 points. Not every week everybody's going to get some love. So I would suggest, obviously, don't sit Mostert. He should be in your starting lineup. He's going to get that love continuously. But remember, Achan, he got more carries that game. So it's just
Yeah.
something to pay attention to. What's a
The
game from? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, just one final note on this game. You mentioned trying to get these running backs on your team. I would even go as far as to say there's the opposite side of that. Maybe try to get Raheem Mostert off your team. See if you can sell high on Raheem Mostert. I know he's a solid back. He's putting up great
It's a
points
great
right
point.
now. But again, like we said, they're not scoring 70 again. The likelihood of him scoring 45 or anywhere near that again is going to be pretty low. He's going to be good for some 15s and some 20s, but I think this is a good sell high opportunity.
Right.
See if you can maybe get a bigger name that's underperforming but might have a stronger season down the stretch.
Just to prove a point of how crazy this game was, I haven't checked this screen off yet since we've been talking, giving our analysis about this game. The game's still going on. The highlights are still going. So, I mean, there you go. There you go.
Dude,
There's
so
your
many.
Judy love there at the end that we were just speaking about. But yeah, man, let's move on to another game. What's a game this week? I mean, I know I kind of put out the big game because it was hard not to go over it. We'll kind of use that as both of our games.
Yeah.
What's a game this week that had a lot of fantasy value, or a player that had a lot of fantasy value for you this week?
Man, I feel like the next big game outside of that Dolphin Broncos one is going to be Chargers Vikings. It
Right.
was not the shootout that I expected it to be, but so many fantasy points spread all over the field in that one. I mean, let's start off with this Minnesota Vikings side. Kirk Cousins is on an absolute tear fantasy wise. 25.68 points in this one. He's throwing the ball 50 times, guys. That is great for Justin Jefferson. That is great for Jordan Addison. That is great for TJ Hawkinson. He threw for 367 yards and 3 touchdowns. Alexander Madison, they threatened his job a little bit with Cam Akers. He comes back,
Yeah.
20 carries, 93 yards, caught 5 balls for 32 yards, 17.50 fantasy points. Justin Jefferson, 27.90 with 7 catches for 149 yards and a touchdown. And then my factor for this week was Jordan Addison, who I thought would have a bigger game, still technically outperform projections, but I will not in any way pat my back or toot my horn on that one. Just a modest 11.20. But dude, so many points from that Minnesota Vikings side, and they're the team that lost. Wait until we start talking about the Chargers and some of these numbers we see here.
Yeah, man. I mean, the Chargers. All right, let's start off with the big name there.
Yep.
Allen. Keenan Allen put it up 45 points in PPR leagues.
Unreal.
215-yard game. 18 for 20. He had 20 targets, 18 receptions. If you have him PPR formats, huge. 45
Do you
points.
see the fun stat on his stat sheet?
He
threw a passing touchdown.
Yeah, that's right. The pass touchdown. I remember seeing that.
I mean,
yeah, that's
QB1, Keenan Allen.
QB1. I think putting up more points than Burrow, maybe. No, I mean, but yeah, this is a team that people are ignoring because they're going back to the Dolphins. They're the opposite of them. I'm not going back to the Vikings real quick. They're the opposite of them. So the fantasy value there, people are not noticing unless it's Justin Jefferson. So that's a good point on some of the players that you're saying. But going back to the Chargers,
yep,
Keenan Allen, 45 points in PPR leagues. Williams, who I believe is out for the year. Is that correct?
Yep. Torn ACL, man.
Torn ACL. Gave us 25 points that game.
He went out like a G, though.
Man,
7 catches, 121 yards, and a touchdown.
Man, I mean, that's rough, though.
Before he left your team, he sent you out with a damn good game.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's tough, man. You never want to see it. But he did give you the points for at least for last week, and this is a review for last week, so we'll speak about that. 7 for 8 for Mike Williams, 121 yards with 1 tutty. Not going to see it anymore, unfortunately. He's hitting the free agency and fantasy.
Yeah,
don't even, unless you have a dynasty league. There's no point putting him in the IR. He's done, and they said that he's more than likely will be ready for the beginning of next year.
Yep.
Joshua Palmer put it at 14 points, solid for a receiver to put up those points. That's good. Yep. That's average, so that's okay. And listen, he's gonna be the number 2 guy now.
I
So
agree. A
he's
lot of
gonna be the
people have
number
been
2 guy
asking.
now. He's gonna see the love. He's gonna see more targets. Him and Mike Williams kind of split targets last week, so it's kind of good. He's gonna see that love now, and he's
Yep.
gonna go back. I mean, not go back, but raise on the fantasy. So for the most part, I believe he's on most people's teams as a backup. Some people took him late in some leagues, but if you can find him on the waiver wire, or you can, someone probably has a heavy receiver depth, or maybe you have heavy receiver depth, try to trade him off, try to buy him as well, because this is someone that's on the back end. A lot of other people have good receivers on their team, and you could probably try to sneak him off someone else's team or get some value for you on your team.
Yeah, I've had a couple people ask me, Travis, what do you think about Josh Palmer or Quentin Johnston? Which one is the one that you want to replace Mike Williams? Well, for me, it's gonna be Josh Palmer because
Yeah,
he's not the rookie. He's been with the Chargers for a while. He understands the system perfectly. Him and Justin Herbert have great chemistry. He steps in, he produces. Whenever Keenan Allen or Mike Williams miss a game, Josh Palmer's Mr. Reliable. It's the reason why whenever one of them are hurt, he's the number one waiver wire ad each and every time. So I would value Josh Palmer more than Quentin Johnston for the rest of the season.
no, for sure. And I'm looking
Mhm.
at here, average, he's about 65% roster, a little bit over half roster. So you might be able to find him on the waiver wires in some of your
Yeah.
leagues. Not good for the running backs. I know it's
No.
because they were playing a heavy passing game and they were just going back and forth, which most teams do with the Chargers, as we saw in week 1 when they were playing the Dolphins.
Hmm.
Uh, what are we doing there? Are we just saying are we just saying no? Are we
Yeah.
just
So
saying
there's
no? Don't do
there's a
Chargers.
few things. There's a few things with this that I want to talk about because we did this with Aaron Jones too when he got hurt, and we were like, AJ Dillon, he's a must start. You gotta play him.
We did do that.
And he was terrible. Austin Eckler's injured. Oh, Josh Kelly, he's on the top offense. You gotta play him. The guy struggled to average a yard per carry. 11 carries for 12 yards. 2 weeks in a row where he's just absolutely dudding it out as Austin Eckler's quote unquote replacement. It's just proof that you cannot replace these damn good players. You're
Right.
gonna miss their production. You're gonna miss everything that they do for your fantasy team. We do not need to keep pretending that these guys are elite handcuffs when they're not elite players.
Right.
So Josh Kelly, please at this point drop him. Doesn't matter if Eckler plays or not. You do not need this guy on your team. You do not need to keep staring at 2.7 in one of your running back spots every week.
Yeah, man. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Eckler's the guy there. RB
Mhm.
wise, we know there's more value Keenan Allen and Herbert. We're not ignoring that, people, but we're talking about RBs and specifically here, and there's no value beyond Eckler there.
Nope.
All right, let's move on to another game here. One that I want to talk about real quick is somebody with a rookie quarterback. Some of these quarterbacks that we're expecting to play very highly are playing very poorly, not even putting up 10 points, just over 10 points.
Yeah.
So speaking about a rookie quarterback and so another quarterback that's supposed to be playing very well, I want to talk about the Houston Jacksonville game. What a surprise. Houston
Yeah.
coming in, winning that game. I mean, it's surprise to some. I think we talked about it last week and we said
We did.
we're not going to be like, oh my God, if they win, because
Yeah.
we see their production coming up. So let's go into the fantasy aspect of that.
Yeah. This was a game that Bruce was adamant that the Texans
Yeah.
were going to win. I mean, we were talking all
Yeah.
week behind the scenes. He was like, dude, the Texans, they're on upset alert. They're going to beat the Jags.
Mhm.
And it all started with CJ Stroud's phenomenal game in NFL terms. 20 completions on 30 attempts, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns. Good enough for 20 fantasy points on your team. He
Yeah.
and Tank Dell are starting to become a little bit of a dynamic duo. Back-to-back weeks with 20 for Tank Dell. 5 catches, 145 yards, and a touchdown. He is a name that needs to seriously be considered as a flex spot, considering all the injuries and all the underperformers that you may have on your team. We're all dealing with them somewhere. Hell, I'm in a league where I have Garrett Wilson and Tank Dell is on my bench. I won the Tank Dell sweepstakes. Tank Dell's going in the lineup. Garrett
Amen.
Wilson's going to have to sit. There is value to be had in this Texans offense, apparently,
Right.
all thanks to CJ Stroud.
Yeah, Tank Dell, 7 targets, 5 receptions, 145 yards at a tutty. I mean, come on. We had Nico Collins there. We have Woods there. This is a solid receiving core.
Absolutely.
That they don't get a lot of love because the point fantasy value, the point value is not always there, or only one of those guys gets it. But I see this team progressing and I see him moving forward. Fun stat. We like to talk about stats here in RDL.
Yep.
Stroud, 3 games, rookie, 0 interceptions. That's
Yeah.
kind of unheard of.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of
And
unheard of. You expect these rookies to make mistakes. And I think with keeping on the fantasy aspect, because that's what we do here, some fantasy people that stream defenses were picking up players that are going against these rookie quarterbacks because they're expecting mistakes to happen, and he's
right,
not making them.
he's
So
been
I mean,
flawless.
yeah,
Truly.
he's not like, oh my god, he's the future. He's not playing like Tua. He's not playing like all this. No, but he's solid. 20-point games he's giving you as last week. Let's see here.
Yeah.
Two
I feel
20-point weeks back to back.
yeah, he's a damn good quarterback, especially for a rookie. When you watch him, I feel like you see shades of Dak Prescott and Jimmy G in a sense. So
Okay.
like I think that's a good combination for a solid decade plus starter in the NFL. And just to go back to the fantasy aspect of this game, someone that finally got some love this week, even though his efficiency was still poor, Damian Pierce,
Right.
14.9 points, 14 carries on 31 yards and a touchdown. Did have 3 catches for 28 yards, which is 5.8 PPR points right there. Again, 14 carries for 31 yards, not that efficient, barely averaging over 2 yards a carry. You want to,
Right.
especially when they're able to air the ball out the way that they are right now with CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, Nico Collins. I want to see Damian Pierce be able to get loose a little bit, but definitely a better game than what
No,
we've
for
been
sure.
seeing from him.
Yeah, for sure. And talk about the other RB there, Singletary with 9 carries, getting more yardage, 41 yards. But when we talk about fantasy, we talking about the value and the carries or the targets that your player is seeing. So don't be too scared that Singletary got these 9 carries and more yardage. We look at the carries. Who's getting the more opportunity to make things happen? That's what's important when we're talking about fantasy. But yeah, man, Damian Pierce, we were waiting for him to show some love. Nothing too crazy once again. Uh RBs usually a mid-range RB is usually going to get you anywhere between 12 to 15ish points if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have some other RBs that are going to just blow up, Eckler's, Christian McCaffrey's, things like that. So, just under 15 points for Damian Pierce. I like it. It's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see it.
Especially with the landscape of running backs right now. These guys are banged up.
Right.
These guys are hurt, missing games. Damian Pierce is a solid option.
Absolutely.
Can I ask you a question, Kevin?
Go ahead.
Do you have Calvin Ridley in any leagues?
I spoke very highly of him on this podcast. I don't think I picked him up at any of my leagues, though.
Well, I mean, this is back-to-back stinkers for Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
He was not good against the Kansas City Chiefs. He was not good this week against the Houston Texans. I feel like you don't panic on this player yet, especially considering the quarterback he's tied to, who also hasn't been so great in his own right.
Right.
But I do think that as the season progresses, this offense is going to get clicking, and Calvin Ridley is going to get back into that high-end wide receiver 2 status that you drafted him for.
Right. An excellent point and an excellent segue here. Going over to the other team in this matchup, Jacksonville Jaguars putting up a stinker, and it was just Trevor Lawrence had 3 interceptions, 2 or 3 interceptions. No, sorry, 1 interception. He had 1 interception. It seemed like more, just how bad the team was.
Yeah, no, seriously.
1 interception, only 14 points for Trevor Lawrence. We're expecting more out of him because we're expecting him to continue progressing as we believe he was and as he was showing in the beginning. But it's tough there because we expected them to run over this Houston defense, and this Houston defense played excellent. They had a fumble recovery, touchdown. I'm not sure if it was a pick 6 or not, but the interception and 1 blocked punt, I believe it was. So we expect this team to do more. I don't know if they were just didn't prepare correctly for this Houston team, but the fantasy value, we expect to see more, and it wasn't there. When you're talking about Ridley, 7 targets. Okay, good. He didn't do much with it, only 40 yards. Christian Kirk, the other receiver there, who a lot of people is a receiver 1 going into the season. I believe he didn't get love until the end of the game. So it was also because I have Christian Kirk, I believe, in 1 or 2 leagues, and I didn't see the points there, and I was getting nervous. I was getting scared. I'm like, what's going on there? But it's just the Houston defense this week was on point, and they're going to continue being on point, I think, after showing out against Jacksonville.
Yeah, and just talk about Evan Ingram real quick. You know, the
Right.
way the tight end landscape is, if a guy's giving you 13 points, anywhere close to double digits, even 8 and above,
Right.
I feel like it's something that you have to accept with the way that with the way tight end is in fantasy right now. So Evan Ingram, another solid game for him. 7 catches for 67 yards. You take it. As far as all the other options, they're gonna pick it up. Calvin Ridley's gonna pick it up. Christian Kirk's gonna remain this solid flex play, and Travis Etienne, he 19 carries for 88 yards, 4 catches, 50 yards. That's good. Well,
Yeah.
you got 17.8 fantasy points. You take that from a guy like Etienne.
No, for sure. I think what else I was going to talk about here. A lot of people are looking at Tank Bigsby as well.
Yep.
Worried about him if he's going to take some carries away from Etienne. Still good if you have him in fantasy. I mean, dynasty leagues, keep him. You know, don't try to do too much. I think he's gonna cause some problems later on for Etienne, but right now Etienne's the guy, so don't worry too much about that.
Yeah, easily Etienne's backfield.
All right. Moving on. Let's see. I want to talk about this the Rams Bengals game from Monday night a little bit
do it.
because there should be more points here.
Oh yeah.
When we're talking about fantasy teams, so we'll go over that very is it true? I read a stat. I don't know if this is true. I feel like it's not. Is Puka been held without a touchdown in 3 weeks?
Yeah, 0 touchdowns.
0 touchdowns. He's getting love through receptions and yardage.
Yep.
We have him PPR. Okay. I wasn't aware of that because
He's been killing it.
You know, I watched my Red Zone and I watched my Jets on Sunday. So I haven't been watching an entire game, and I just figured with the amount of points he's been putting up, he's had a tutty. So where are we with Puka? Let's talk about that. Where are we with Puka with Cup coming back in a week, or hopefully in a week?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of people that understand the game to a much higher level than I do have been saying that Puka Nacua is more of that wide receiver that's filling the old Robert Woods role next to where Cooper Kupp used to be, and so they don't project Cooper Kupp's return impacting Puka Nacua in any way. The person that they do expect it to impact is the man right above him in terms of fantasy points this game on his team, Tutu Atwell, because that's the guy that's been lined up in the slot a little bit. He's their speedster. He's the one that they're trying to get the ball to in space. So maybe if you have Tutu when Cooper Kupp comes back, I would temper expectations. But Puka Nacua has been sensational. If 20 points is your worst game as a pro during your rookie season, 3 weeks in, I'll take it, man. 5 catches on 7 targets for 72 yards. And he really didn't get that last. He got that last catch. It was a 37-yarder at the end of the game. Other than that, he was having kind of a piss poor day with like 8.5 points. So that catch kind of saved your week. If you had Puka Nacua and you needed those little extra points, that one final catch on Monday night really gave you a little boost.
So you're saying not to worry?
I wouldn't worry on Puka Nacua. No, I think he's gotten you this far. He's been playing well. Sean McVay knows it. Matt Stafford knows it. Ride it out a little bit and see what happens.
Okay. Like he said, 12 points this week, and it might be rough coming from a week 1 21 point, a week 2 30 point, to a week 3 12 point in PPR formats. So I agree. Don't panic. Don't go and try to trade him unless you have other receiver depth there. But
unless you're the team with Cooper Kupp, unless you have Cooper Kupp, realize the injury happened, and you were like, oh, I need to go get Puka Nacua. You know, like nobody drafted with the expectation that Puka Nacua was going to be playing big time on their team, on their fantasy team.
Yeah, no one
so
expected that.
You should be fine at wide
receiver. He came off of everybody. He came into the game off everybody's waiver wires. I believe I'll be shocked if more than 10% of people had him rostered and starting week 1.
Yeah,
I doubt it. Yeah, so I expected more points in this game. But let's talk about someone that did get some of their love on the other side of the receiver. Jamar Chase finally seeing some targets, finally seeing the value where you drafted him, obviously, more than likely top 3. 12 catches on 15 targets, 141 yards, no tutties, but it's okay.
Yep.
It's okay. Whopping 26 points in PPR league. Tell me how you feeling about Chase. Are we finally going to see this starting to happen again? Do we put a little bit of more trust in Burrow? Because, hey, listen, Burrow's caca in fantasy for the
Yeah.
past 3 weeks. So what are we doing there? It's scary with Chase. I'll be honest. I'm trying to buy low on him.
Yeah.
On Chase,
Yeah.
that is. I'm trying to buy low because he hasn't been doing it. I'm kind of upset that
That he had the good
he had
game.
this game because I'm like, man, I was kind of gonna get away with it. But what are we doing with Chase? We're gonna look on our, just so we don't go too much into it, on our next episode, we're gonna implement a segment of buying and selling your players.
Yeah.
So that's why we're kind of easing it into this episode, just so everybody knows we're talking a lot about buying and selling. But tell me, what do you feel about Chase?
Yeah, I think right now, one of the few startable fantasy options in Cincinnati right now. I mean, obviously, if you have T. Higgins, you're starting him no matter what because you're expecting that boom game. I have T. Higgins in a couple leagues.
Whoa,
Dude,
I'm sorry.
you
Let's not overlook that real quick. Sorry to interrupt you. What was wrong with his hands?
I think he missed a couple snaps with broken hands. I think they had to take him out of the game, take him to the blue tent to make sure that there was nothing wrong with them. Because what the hell, dude? He was just dropping everything.
Right in the hands, man.
Dude,
I was
hitting
like,
him in the face
I was
mask.
like,
I'm like,
no way, bro.
T, come
All right,
on.
all right. Sorry, continue.
No, it's all good. So Jamar Chase, look, there's nothing to do with him. You start him every week, and you pray for weeks like this. 26 points this week, finished as the wide receiver 6, coming off of a wide receiver 60 week in week 2 against the Baltimore Ravens, a team that he normally has success against. But now this upcoming week in week 4, he gets the Tennessee Titans, one of the worst secondaries in the league. I don't think you need great Joe Burrow for Jamar Chase to produce. I think you need great Joe Burrow for T. Higgins to produce, and that's the issue right now. So if you have Jamar,
Yeah.
you keep playing him, man. Roll him out there.
Yeah, man. I agree. I agree with that. I wasn't big on Higgins going into the season. I think I made that very clear in our first few podcasts. I wasn't big on Higgins or Boyd. I was big on Chase because it's Chase.
Yeah.
But I had a gut feeling about this Bengals offense, and so far through 3 weeks, I've been right. And I'm saying with this gut feeling, I drafted Burrow in almost all my leagues because I'm someone that drafts quarterbacks late because I'm trying to get value elsewhere. So it's tough, man. I should have listened to my own gut and strayed away from most of these players. I was never, even though Mixon's solid in most years, I was also never big on Mixon. Jamar Chase is the only person that I want on this team. I'll be completely honest with you. But speaking about Mixon, let's talk about that. Mixon also starting to get a little bit of love as well. This whole offense started seeing a little bit more progression, a little bit more and against the Rams, which is a high, has been showing high power on their offense as well, through Puka, through Tutu Atwell. So they needed to do something. They finally did it. And I'm happy for the Bengals because I want to see more fantasy value here. This is a lot of teams, fantasy teams have these players on their team, and we need to see some production. Not much on the tight end and tight end front on this game. Higbee was someone big on my list early. He's doing okay. I think he's an average. Let's see, where's Higbee on the list now? He's maybe top.
Higbee is tight end
14.
9 right now.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Tight end 9. I see it. Yeah, man. So that's why I figured right in the top 10. So I don't see any value on Bengals side at tight end. So stay away from that.
Yeah, no. If you're starting a Bengals tight end, you are very much down bad.
And the points here was given by the kicker, but we don't talk kickers here. No, I'm joking. It was given by the kicker, 18 points by McPherson.
Yeah. Outscoring Joe Mixon.
Yeah. If you want fantasy values outside of Chase on the Bengals team, look at
go to Evan McPherson.
Any other games you want to talk about? I know there's a lot here. So any other games?
I think an interesting one that I would like to talk about is the Seattle Seahawks against the Carolina Panthers. Not a big flashy game, of course, when you look at these two teams from an NFL standpoint.
Right. I mean, you saying the name right now, I kind of overlooked it, and I'm looking at the stats here. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Andy Dalton came in and was dealing. If Andy Dalton has to throw damn near 60 passes in a game for you, you were doing something wrong from the jump. Why is Andy Dalton throwing 58 passes? Nonetheless, I loved it because I'm an Adam Thielen owner. And dude, Adam Thielen, 11 catches for 145 yards and a touchdown. Good for 31.50 fantasy points. I mean, with Andy Dalton, and Bryce Young is going to be back in week 4. He practiced fully today. That ankle is good to go. But man, if Andy Dalton was capable of doing that for Adam Thielen, don't you just want to see more of that from Bryce Young? Bryce Young hasn't really given you a fantasy relevant player on his team.
Right.
Thielen did have 20 points in the Monday night game against the New Orleans Saints. That's fine. But man, you're going to miss Andy Dalton if you're an Adam Thielen owner. And then on the other side, our boy Kenny Walker, killing it. 18 carries. The volume is there. 97 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 catches for 59 yards. There were questions about maybe competition with Zach Charbonnet. Zach only had 9 carries in this one. This is Kenneth Walker's backfield with a little bit of Zach Charbonnet sprinkled in. But this game was fireworks in terms of fantasy production.
Yeah, man. It's one that was overlooked. I'll be honest. I overlooked it myself. When you even said the name now, I'm like, why? Why are you talking about that? But
I
yeah,
mean,
going on the radar. I mean, Andy Dalton putting up points for you. And once again, someone like me, I'm looking for somewhere to go quarterback wise. Burrow was tough for me. I went and picked up Stafford. We talked about it last episode. I went and picked up Stafford because in case Burrow didn't play, Burrow played, and I still put Stafford in, and still not a heavy game, and so it's kind of scary, kind of scarce, and I might have to start looking at these people who are not every week starter. Do I start streaming quarterbacks? Is that a thing? Anyways, but but yeah, man, excellent game to talk about. I didn't notice even the score being so high. Listen, man, I mean, I'll be honest. After that Jets game, I was so upset. So, and listen, we'll run over it real quick since I mentioned it. There's no value there. Okay. A lot of people taking Garrett Wilson early, hoping with Brees Hall. There's no value here. And until they change something at quarterback, it's going to continue to be no value here.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, the people that drafted him beginning of the second round, late first round even, we knew his success was tied to Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
I think it just hurts that much more that the injury didn't happen to Garrett Wilson. It happened to Aaron Rodgers. And so you still have this player that you drafted so high, and it's hard to cut ties with him. It really is. But like I said, I'm in a league where I have Garrett Wilson redraft. He's my wide receiver too. Not anymore. Tank Dell is going where Garrett Wilson was, and I'm fine with that. That's a decision that you have to make. I'm actively trying to trade Garrett Wilson right now. I sent out 2 feelers in the Real Deal League, one for Rashad White and one for Isaiah Pacheco. That is super settling when it comes to Garrett Wilson, but that's the reality of the situation. Those are the running backs that he's equal to in terms of value at this point, even though you drafted him in the second round. So either keep starting him and hoping for something, which is probably the dumb idea right now, or just take your loss, cut your ties.
You know, it hit close to home.
It hurts the
all
heart.
Right? And I'm going to say this with all due respect to my favorite NFL team, the New York Jets. That's it. That's all I'm going to say, because the Patriots and the Jets, no value. I don't see any value on either team. Maybe, Hunter Henry, let's keep him up there. Let's not forget about Hunter Henry. But he didn't have a big game last week. But I still think there's value in Hunter Henry and owning Hunter Henry there. So with that said, I'm going to quickly run away from that Jets game.
Yeah, let's get out of here.
And I was in there. I didn't like how I was feeling. I didn't know anybody. I left. I want to talk about, before we go into injuries, let's talk about one more game here.
Yeah, let's do it.
I want to talk about another 3-0 team, the Eagles.
Okay.
The Eagles and the fantasy value there. The one thing I want to talk about in particular here is we saw Devontae Smith.
Yep.
Getting a lot of love first couple weeks. Now Antonio Brown, he's back on it. 131 yards, 9 receptions for 22 points.
Antonio Brown, what year are you living in, bro?
Sorry, AJ Brown. Jesus Christ. I hope Antonio Brown comes back and comes to the Jets and plays like he did back in Pittsburgh days. No. I see A Brown. That's where my mind goes to.
No,
AJ Brown. Sorry, AJ Brown. 22 PPR points, 131 yards, 9 receptions. Do we see threatening value to Smith at all?
The one thing I will say about this AJ Brown performance, and he's kind of developing a reputation as a bit of a I don't want to say boomer bust, but his
No,
production is
say it.
definitely
I agree. I
volatile.
agree.
Yeah,
I
his
agree.
production is volatile, especially with the presence of
Kind of like
Devontae
Antonio
Smith.
Brown now. No, I was kidding.
So the one thing I will say about this AJ Brown performance is I expected it in this game against the Tampa Bay Bucks, but not because of who they were playing, not because of anything like that. Just off the fact that he had such a terrible game last week,
Right.
and he was arguing with Jalen Hurts on the sideline. And wide receivers, they say, "Oh, I just want to win so bad." No, bro, you want your stats, and here
Mm.
they are. You're welcome. You got your stats on Monday Night Football against the Bucks. I saw it coming just because everybody wants to please their star players, right? So this was the AJ Brown bounce back game. And on the other end of that, I knew Devontae Smith was going to struggle. Why? Because AJ Brown was going to get 14 targets, 9 catches for 131 yards. The ball was going to go to him all night. So I do think I still hold firm in my belief that Devontae Smith can end the season outscoring AJ Brown. But there
Agreed.
are going to be weeks like this where AJ Brown is booming and Devontae's busting. And then it's going to be flip flop. Devontae's booming and AJ's the one with 6.8. So you just kind of, as a owner of one of these receivers, you just play the hand you're dealt that week, but they're absolutely must starts every week.
Agreed. 100% agree with everything you said. Must starts. Do not panic. I do agree on AJ Brown and that boom or bust. I really do agree with that. But you have to start him
Yeah,
because
of course.
that you always hoping for that boom game. And Devontae Smith, I agree. I think he's going to be receiver one fantasy value wise on that team. But
Yeah.
going back to Antonio Brown and a team he used to play for, the Buccaneers,
Yeah.
Mike Evans started. I seen Mayfield going his way a lot more, feeling more confidence going his way a lot more, making an amazing catch during the game. I don't know if you saw it, but an
Oh
amazing
yeah,
catch
that
during the
one-handed
game.
catch.
Uh,
Incredible.
only 5 receptions, but he was looked at 10 times.
Yeah.
10 times, 60 yards, and a tutty. What are we feeling about Mike Evans and that receiver room in Tampa Bay? Because Godwin, we were hoping that he was giving us more fantasy value as well. What's going on there?
Yeah, so pleasant start to the season if you're a Mike Evans owner. This is a guy that I kind of faded a little bit during the draft season, not gonna lie, because I
Me
thought
too. Me too.
Chris Godwin would present easier opportunities for Baker Mayfield.
Yep.
But I mean, Baker's found his guy. He is locked in on Mike Evans. 10 targets week 1, 8 targets week 2, 10 targets week 3. Mike Evans is making the most of these targets with finishes as wide receiver 13 in week 1, wide receiver 3 week 2, wide receiver 21 in week 3. So I think you're feeling good about Mike Evans. If you don't have that much faith in this offense and his production being sustained, this is the sell high opportunity. If you want to package him together with one more thing and see if somebody's
Yeah.
frustrated with a CD Lamb or somebody's frustrated with any top wide receiver that's not performing up to par, like you mentioned earlier, Jamar Chase. If you pair Mike Evans with a quality running back and someone's like, you know what? Yeah, this 26-point game happened, but Joe Burrow's not healthy. I can't deal with this every week. You never know what's going to happen. You can always try. That's the best thing about trading is you can at least try to see how another owner is feeling about their player. But for Mike Evans, as long as he's seeing 10 targets a game, dude, starting him. Absolutely starting him. You're not thinking twice about it. And as far as Chris Godwin, this is a player that I appreciate so much in terms of what he was as a fantasy weapon with Tom Brady. And even with Jameis Winston, Chris Godwin made his name with Jameis Winston and then just
Right.
became an absolute dog with Tom Brady. But the start is a little concerning, and especially for a guy that I thought would make a living off of, that PPR format, full point. He's only got 5 catches in week 1, 5 catches week 2, and then 3 in week 3. This is a slot receiver. It should be easy to get him the ball. It's not clicking for him and Baker right now. So I'd be a little concerned. Pair him up with something or just, say, hey, I'm okay with having 10 points in my flex spot every week, but there may be a higher ceiling somewhere, and I might just sit him down for a while until he shows me that he's worth starting.
Yeah, man. I have him in a few leagues. I believe 2 leagues. Expecting more value in Evans this year. That's what my gut was telling me in that area.
Yeah.
And still nothing crazy. Still giving you average, just below average rather, points and PPR formats. So that's why I like PPR leagues, because even if they are not getting that yardage, the receptions do help.
Yeah.
We could talk about all these games with all these players forever. We can do that. And if you have any questions or you want us to answer anything, down in the comments below, say, hey,
Yep.
how do you feel about this guy? This is the performance he gave in week 3. We'll give you our analyst, maybe shoot you a nice little video on the Instagram or on the
Oof.
Twitter or response
Oof.
on our reviews. But unfortunately, we can't talk about every player and every game.
Right.
So, with that said, talking about players that are coming back or players that are not coming back, Trav, injury
Yeah.
report.
Week 4, Wednesday, injury report. We're going to start from the very top because we haven't gotten a chance to talk about it yet. Mike Williams, torn ACL. We're going to miss you, dog. Thank you for the 25 before you went out. You're a true soldier. Moving on to some information about tomorrow night's game. Mr. Christian Watson, hamstring injury that he's been nursing, haven't played all year. He's expected to come back tomorrow. The report dropped late Wednesday night. So if you have Christian Watson, maybe not starting him yet, but definitely keeping an eye on his performance, on his usage, and seeing how he looks running on that hamstring. Mr. Derek Carr, shoulder injury that he suffered late in that game last week. He did not practice on Wednesday, but your boy Anthony Richardson did practice, and he was a full participant too. Not cleared from the concussion yet, but obviously that's expected to happen before Sunday's game if he's already a full participant. Deebo Samuel, rib injury. He did not practice on Wednesday. Makes sense that he has a rib injury with all the Giants that he was carrying on him earlier this week. And then his teammate, his running mate, arguably wide receiver 1 in San Fran, Brandon Ayuk, was limited on Wednesday with a shoulder injury, that AC joint sprain that we knew about a couple weeks ago. He was limited, so we're expecting him back this week. Mr. James Conner's on the injury report because, of course, he is. He's dealing with a back injury, but supposedly it's not a big deal. Just going to rest him on Wednesday like they normally do, and then he should be good to go this weekend. Deshaun Watson nursing a shoulder injury. He got in a limited. He was a limited participant in practice today. So was his teammate Jerome Ford, who also has a shoulder injury and was limited today. Austin Eckler returned to practice. Clap it up for Austin Eckler. Returned to practice this Wednesday. All systems a go, hopefully, for this Sunday. Jalen Waddle, full participant. He's back from the concussion. Not cleared yet, but he will be good to go this weekend. Jimmy G also has a concussion. I mean, 1 week it was all hammies. This week it's all concussions. It's just crazy the way this game is, man. Jimmy should be good to go for this week, but keep an eye on that because if he's not, obviously Devontae Adams takes a hit. Tyler Higbee did not practice on Wednesday with an Achilles injury. It's not torn, but it is a little strained and he's feeling some pain. So he's not going to practice, or he didn't practice Wednesday. He'll probably be limited at some point this week, and hopefully he can get in there this weekend for the Rams matchup. Saquon Barkley, the last piece of information for this injury report, quote unquote, a stretch to play in week 4. So you're eyeing that week 5 return for Saquon Barkley right now.
Thank you, Trev.
Yes,
With
sir.
our week 3 going into week 4 injury update. Talking about those injuries, we have to talk about players coming back very quickly. Cooper Kupp, a week away from making my team a Super Bowl team in fantasy RDL leagues.
Oh, yeah.
No, how are we feeling about that? Do we expect Cooper Kupp to come out the gate running? Just no restraint there, and give us the points that we drafted him in our round 1 of our drafts? Or are we expecting this to be a slow process back?
I mean, we would love for him to come in right away and be that Cooper Kupp of old, right? But we're talking about a 30-year-old with hamstring injuries, so I would temper expectations. Of course, he's back. You're going to want to start him. You're not going to be the one that wants to miss out on that boom week 5 game for his first game back if he does play. But I'm watching the words that the Rams are using when discussing Cooper Kupp and his return for week 5. And they just keep saying they're hopeful. They hope that he's good to go for week 5. There's a report that they're ramping up his workload throughout this week just to get him running routes on air, catching passes, see how he's moving. But when a team is hopeful and they don't have anything solid that they can give you, like, yeah, he looks good, we're expecting him to be out there, it's just based on hope, I don't know how to feel. So I think until I see it in one game, or if you're just hurting that bad at wide receiver and you need to throw Cooper Kupp in there, then do it. But until I see it one game and he sustains it for that one game, I might just not play him that first game back, even though he's Cooper Cup and deserves to be starting.
Listen, man, if you took Cooper Cup in round 1, which mostly, unless you drafted after you found out about the IR,
Right.
you took him week 1. You're starting him as soon as he's available. Even if it's in a flex, you're starting him. I'm not going against what you're saying, but I want you to let them know the pain that me and every other Cooper Cup owner that draft him before learning about the IR is going through. You're starting him. You're starting him. Thank you once again. Thank you for the injury update. Before we close it out today, when this video is going to be released, it's going to be Thursday night. It's going to be Thursday night football. What are we feeling about this game? What fantasy value do we have here?
Well, we're going to start with David Montgomery being questionable to make his return for TNF on, tomorrow. When you're listening to this tonight, he's coming back from the thigh injury, the contusion. So if he does play, it's going to be interesting to see how much he plays, first of all. And second of all, if he immediately cuts into Jahmyr Gibbs' usage again. Because Jahmyr Gibbs didn't give you great fantasy points in week 3. Only scored 9.20 as the lead guy. 17 carries for 80 yards. 17 carries is great. 80 yards is awesome. Finishing as RB25 and only getting 9.2 fantasy points when you are the guy for a week, that's not so inspiring. But I would like to see, if David Montgomery does come back, then work him in again and put Jahmyr Gibbs back in that pass catching role, running him to the outside, and let David Montgomery be the back that's banging it up the middle, because that's not Jahmyr Gibbs' game. When we drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, where we drafted him, it wasn't so they could use him like DeAndre Swift, which was wrong, using him the wrong way, running him up the middle. This is one of the most exciting players in football, especially in fantasy football. Get him touches the right way. Get him on the boundary. Let him use his speed. So that's something I'm looking forward to for tomorrow. And then also Aaron Jones. Is he going to play? Is the hamstring good to go, or does he have to wait another week? It's a short week, so things get tricky, but I'm really interested to see how these players coming back from injury perform.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, I said it last week on our podcast that flags should be raised if we don't see an outstanding performance from Gibbs.
Yep.
For me, the flag has been raised. The red flag has been raised. I'm a little worried about his value and what we expected to come out of him. Now, don't get me wrong. 9 points, once again, is just below average that you want from your running back, especially him, who's probably in a flex or RB2 spot. 17 carries. He had the carries there. But a little red flags raised for me, because if he didn't give us what we needed, I feel like when Montgomery comes back and he's healthy, he's going to continue to be used the way the Detroit Lions are using him, and Gibbs is not going to see a lot of love. And we talked about boom or bust. That's what I see here. He might have a couple games where he breaks these tackles because he's very elusive. He's going to be a great running back in this league, but just a little worrisome for me in this 2023 fantasy year.
Yeah. And one last thing from the Detroit Lions side, Sam Laporta is officially a tight end 1 in fantasy football.
Hey, so now
if you've got him, you're starting him. In terms of ranking and points per game wise, he's tight end 2. I think we can all guess who he's behind. Nonetheless, this is a rookie tight end. They do not do this. Rookie tight ends do not get off the hot starts like this. Without a doubt, he is a starter if he's on your roster. If you have Kyle Pitts and Sam Laporta, you start Sam Laporta. If you have, I don't know, name anybody, Tyler Higbee and Sam Laporta, you start Sam Laporta. He is officially in that range of guys that you are starting no matter what.
I agree. Although Taylor Swift was at the Kansas City game, and I believe is giving Kelsey some magic powers. He's going to be amazing. Yeah. No, I agree. I spoke about this very early on. I don't believe on this podcast, but like during drafts, on how high I was on Laporta and the ceiling I saw for him. Yeah, was very high. And I love to see it. Continue with this game. Amon St. Brown going against Green Bay. They're going to be in Green Bay, right? Yeah, they're in Green Bay. fantasy values there. Obviously, you're starting him. We're careful with Watson, right? We don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Well, he's playing, barring
Okay.
a setback, he's going to be playing. But again, this is a player that coming off an injury, first game of the season for him. I wouldn't be eager to throw him in my lineup. You've made it 3 weeks without him. What's one more week just to get him on the field and see how he's moving around, how he's running on that hamstring?
Okay, and continuing with that little injury update, Aaron Jones.
Yep, the hamstring. I don't think there's anything definitive on him yet. I believe he's a game time decision or questionable, but you want to see him come back because it puts an end to all the AJ Dillon pain.
26 points, week 1. We haven't seen him since.
Yeah.
I want to see him back. Get that Dillon Payne out of the way. He's still questionable, I believe, like you told us earlier, for Thursday Night Football, which hurts because you don't know what to do. Do you play him and then you ruin the rest of your week because he doesn't play, or he plays a few snaps and says, it doesn't feel right, and gets out of the game? Super scary. I wouldn't risk it because it's a Thursday night game. Anything else I probably would risk it for, but Thursday night I wouldn't risk it. Take it on the chin. If he plays and he plays amazing, like, damn, I should have started him. But now you know that he's back and you can start him without any worry in the upcoming weeks.
Exactly. That's the approach I would take as well. Perfect take.
Anything else about this game before we head out for today?
No, I think we covered a lot. Just a star-studded game between Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and then we're just watching these injuries on Green Bay side. Is Aaron Jones coming back? Is Christian Watson coming back? On the Lions, is David Montgomery going to play? So I think we covered everything with this one. If we want to touch on these quarterbacks real quick, how do you feel about Jared Goff and Jordan Love?
I love touching on quarterbacks.
Nice.
Nah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, how do you feel about Jared Goff or Jordan Love as streaming options? Do you think, I think for sure Jordan Love would probably be the better one to stream, but I mean, if you're a team with Justin Fields and you're over it, or if you're a team with Joe Burrow and you're like, I'm ready to sit you, bro, until you show me I should start you, are Jared Goff and Jordan Love viable options?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm opposite from you here.
Okay.
I'm gonna go against you here. I'm going more Goff because of the Laporta, because of the Amon-Ra St. Brown, and because of the value that those pass catchers can give you. I see more for Goff here. Jordan Love, although viable option, if I had to pick between these two, I'm gonna go Goff.
Yeah, and just to paint a picture of how ugly the quarterback landscape is right now in terms of consistency at the position. Jordan Love through 3 weeks is quarterback 4, averaging 22.8 points per game, and Jared Goff, I believe, is quarterback 10, averaging basically 19 points. It's 18.99. He's averaging 19 points. These are not guys that, I mean, first of all, most of them probably went undrafted. Both of them probably went undrafted in redraft leagues, unless you truly had a gut feeling about one in the final round. But we are now at a time where Jared Goff is a viable starting option, and Jordan Love is definitely a viable starting option. So if you're the Joe Burrow owner, Justin Fields owner, if you somehow waited and you ended up with a Daniel Jones or a Russell Wilson, I mean, hell, even if you have Dak Prescott.
I saw Daniel Jones hit the waiver wires in some of my leagues.
I mean,
a certain person that's not to be named, that's not here right now.
Yeah, no.
He's done with him. He's done. He threw him.
I'll tell you what, he was pretty upset he couldn't get CJ Stroud.
Listen, man. Listen, I'm not going to talk about Bruce when he's not here, but let's just say we miss you today, Bruce. Bruce will be back next week, or not next week, in a few days. Bruce will be back when we talk about week 4, our actors and factors, and our buys and sells. I'm excited for that. We also are going to have a guest next week. We're going to add him, or keep saying next week, in the next episode. Yep. We're going to add him here. He's going to talk about his actors and factors, how he's doing in his leagues. None other than Mr. Javier. That's him. He's getting prepared for all the shots I'm going to take at him. Pop, 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 knocking everything out of the way. Lovely man, lovely gentleman. He is currently very high in the RDL standings. Yep. Good for him. We would love to get his intake, love to get his input. But for now, It's just me and Trav. Thank you for joining us. Comment down below what you feel we should be talking about, what things we can add to the show, anything. We're here for you. We're here for the people. Trav, take us out.
Yep. Really excited for this week of fantasy football. Again, comment down below. Just let us know anything, lineup situations, trade situations, who you think is going to go off this week. Give us a factor and actor before we drop ours. Follow us. Follow us right down there on all platforms at RDL Fantasy Pod. Guys, we love having you. We love having you guys listen to the show. Please comment, interact with us. We look forward to it. That's all I got to say.
Everybody, see you next week.
If you looking for the truth, then I'm the real deal. If you looking for the truth, then I'm the real deal. Shout out to the crew and they get real. Find me with the crew, nigga, real deal. You not on the team, boy, you on the bench. You not in my league, how I'm on your neck. Hey, I heard you working out, please don't hurt yourself. My pockets by the flex, your pockets gotta stretch. Okay, don't talk too much and Bruce go at your chest.